to another edition of Maker 9601. This is Dave coming to you today from my home base in North Florida. I'm not traveling right now because, you know, coronavirus, COVID-19. And, you know, it's not the right time, at least in my perspective, to be out seeing the world. So I'm, you know, trying to stay close to home doing projects here. And a lot of my projects lately have involved cooking. And today I'm going to be presenting some work I've been doing recently on a low carb version of, or a lower carb version of pistachio paste. Now, the humble pistachio nut is one that I think a lot of folks in this country, in the United States where I currently am, don't really have you know, a lot of experience with. In my youth, pistachios were sold in the hot nut counter at the Five and Dime, at the drugstores where they'd have a hot nut counter, and you could buy warm nuts to go. And pistachio nuts were always colored red and bright red. And as I was growing up, I figured it was an odd red nut, but it turns out that that red color came from a nut merchant in Syria who decided that they wanted to differentiate their nuts from the crowd, so they started dyeing them red, and pretty soon all pistachio nuts that came into the U.S. were dyed red. A strange thing, but it's true. Wisdom of the internet, anyway, tells you that. I spent a lot of time in Italy. I'm lucky that I do. I like Italy for all sorts of reasons. The first, of course, being the fantastic people of Italy. But food is a close second. And pistachios and nuts in general have a lot more culinary uses than they do in the United States. Now, in Italy, if you live anywhere near even the smallest little humble village, you can go in the morning to the bar and get yourself a nice cup of cappuccino or some other delicious coffee beverage, and a brioche of some sort, a pasto. And I like to get cornetto. Cornetto is a kind of a laminated dough pastry that's similar to croissant, to the French croissant, but I think much more tasty myself. And often in Italy, you can get the cornetto. You can get it vuoto, which is empty, and those are delicious. But you can also get it con pistachio, con crema, con cioccolato, con Nutella, and with a little bit of stuffing inside. And I particularly really enjoy pistachio cream inside my morning brioche. One of the challenges for me in using pistachio cream or pistachio paste in my cooking is that I am sensitive to glucose, and I can't have a lot of sugar in my life. And already pistachios are relatively you know, up there as far as nuts are concerned. I mentioned they were a fruit, just like cashews are a fruit. And I think in a 1 ounce serving, they have about 6 grams of carbohydrates. And for people who watch their carbs, having 6 grams of carbohydrate is, you know, more than a quarter of their daily carbohydrate budget if you're a keto user, for example, a keto follower. So I've been working on this recipe for a while, exploring different recipes for pistachio paste, and have been working with various sugar alternatives, and so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But to start with, I want to show you what we're working with here today. So cashews are a little hard to find in U.S. supermarkets. I found these in a local community co-op here in the city that I'm currently in, and they don't really say on the label in the store, in the bulk bins, where they're from. They're probably California pistachios. They might be Turkish, who knows? They might be Italian. I have no clue because they didn't have any kind of a place of origin on the label. These are pretty beautiful. They're If you notice though, we can see, we get this in focus here. There we go. They have a little bit of brown skin on them. And that brown skin in the finished product is not going to be very good. So we're going to take that off. So the process of getting these skins off the, off the nuts, these little papery skins, is called blanching. And you may have blanched other nuts in the past. For example, if you work with hazelnuts, filberts, you probably know that you have to blanch them. The skins on pistachios are a little more aggressive. I've been researching and experimenting with this, and I've found several different methods for doing this. What I've done is I've put them in a pan on top of the stove with the heat turned off. I added cold water, and I've started my timer for 3 minutes. All right, so these have been soaking for about 3 minutes now. The timer's about to go off. Thank you, iPhone timer. And we are now going to actually turn the there we go. 3 minutes is up. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat on the stove. And what you want to do is bring this up to a simmer. I'm using my freshly washed hands to kind of monitor the temperature in here, and also to make sure that we know when it's time to start pulling the papery skins off, because if you let them go too long, they get kind of mushy, and you don't really want them mushy. You want them to just be at that point where they still have good body to them, but at the same time that the papery parts of the skin, the remaining skin on these things, peels off easily, rubs off easily. I've tried a bunch of different things in getting ready for this video. I tried a method where you basically put them in, put the pistachios in a bowl in the microwave, and put a bunch of water in and heated it for 10 minutes. Is what that method called for. I think I found that on Reddit, and the results were pretty terrible. I mean, they weren't terrible, but the pistachios cooked, and you don't want these cooked. You want them to be raw. So we're just paying attention to these. The water's getting a little warmer now. The skins are starting to come off a little bit. We're going to try a couple different methods for getting the skins off. They're still not coming off quite what we want yet, and they're starting to come apart a little bit more. Almost at the point where I have to start using yeah, they're getting pretty close. So the microwave method didn't work. I tried another method that puts them in boiling water for a few minutes. Get my favorite kitchen spoon out here. It's worth being home just to have access to this nice spoon. This spoon is... Have you ever seen a spoon like this with a slot on one side like that? They're hard to find. I've searched for a replacement when I thought I'd lost this one. Turned out I hadn't. I found it. Let's check the temperature here, because we don't want this to come to a boil. Let's see where we're at here right now. We are at 159, 160 degrees. Yeah, we want to keep it way below boiling, just at the simmer point. So I'm going to turn this down just a little bit, and it shouldn't take too long. What we're trying to do is we're just trying to... Oh yeah, they're coming off now. I think we might be just about at the right point. Oh yeah, they're all coming off. Okay, all right, I'm going to turn the heat off. Check one more, two more. There's the nail. Maybe we need to go just a minute or two longer, because there's still a few that are being a little bit sensitive about getting the skin off. What we want them to be is, when we have them done, we want them to be these bright green, beautiful, skinless pistachios. We're getting there. They're so close. Yeah, I think that's good. I'm going to go ahead and turn them off. And I'm going to take them and drain them in the sink. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back on the cutting board. I have my pistachios. I've drained them off in some cold water to try to make them a little cooler to work with. I'm putting them... This is one of two methods that I've tried that seems to work pretty well. To start with, putting them between a clean paper, clean kitchen towel, and try to get as much of the stuff off as you can. You still need to use your hands a little bit. This one's not quite cooperating. We'll put him aside and you might need to go back in the hot water for a little bit longer. Hey, if at first you don't succeed, try again. What we'll do is we'll get the ones we can, and then maybe we'll do the other ones in a little bit more of a bath. So yeah, these are looking pretty good. We're getting pretty good selection of shell off them. So the next step was to grind the pistachio nuts, pistachio fruit up into a paste, and I do not have a really high-powered food processor. I started out by trying this magic bullet out, and it was not nearly powerful enough. In fact, the motor got really hot, and I was afraid that I was going to burn it out, so I switched then to a small food processor, a little portable food processor. That worked a bit better, but I think in the future, when I do this project, I'm going to have to either get something like a Vitamix or a Robo Coupe or some other high-end grinder that will grind up my nuts to a finer paste. Okay, well this is take two because the Magic Bullet blender was not bad enough to actually do what we're doing. So we're actually using a little food processor now. Okay, well it's not doing a great job in this little food processor. The last batch I did a smaller batch, and I actually added cream to it, which actually makes it a chantilly as opposed to a paste. But it's doing okay. I'm going to add a little water to it now, just a tiny bit, maybe an ounce or so, to see if that will loosen it up some. This is an experiment, folks. We're learning together as we go on with this. Well, we've got it about as far as it's going to go. The color has brightened up quite a bit. The next step is to add a few other ingredients to it. We've already added a little bit of oil. We've added probably, I don't know, a quarter to a half a cup of water to make it wet enough for this little underfloured food processor to work. We're going to add now some salt and some sweetener. I'm putting in about a half a teaspoon of Hawaiian sea salt. This is a coarse salt. If you use a finer salt, cut it in half, because coarser salts have more air in between the different parts, and so as a result, half a teaspoon of coarse salt isn't nearly as salty as a half a teaspoon of fine salt. The next ingredient that's going to go in is just a tiny little bit of keto limoncello. Limoncello is a liqueur. This is a 151 grain alcohol mixed with lemons, and it's sweetened with monk fruit. And I'm just pouring a little bit of that in to the mix to give it a little bit of a lemon flavor. I find I like that in my pistachio cream. I think it tastes delicious. The next ingredient I'm going to put in, the next ingredient is going to be some powdered swerve. This is swerve. Swerve is a sugar alternative made out of erythritol. I'm going to put about 2.5 ounces of the powdered swerve in. We're going to put a half ounce of brown swerve in to give it a little bit of a molassesy flavor. Well, that was it. It was an experiment on a little bit of rye. I didn't quite get it what I wanted. My little food processor didn't have enough oomph to process it the way that I really needed to. I really need a Vitamix or a tool like that, or a RoboCoupe food processor or something along those lines. I don't have one, and my last food processor burned up on me, and I probably came close to burning this one up too. It was almost too hot to touch the motor of that thing by the time I was done, and I was nowhere near processing it for the 5 to 10 minutes that most recipes call for. So, but the final product a little bit gritty. You know, the nuts weren't processed, so it was perfectly smooth, but has a nice pistachio flavor to it. I like the addition of a little bit of the limoncello. The keto limoncello was a good addition, I believe. The swerve, the powdered swerve, normally in this recipe you put powdered sugar in, and I don't do that because I don't try not to eat sugar, but the powdered swerve worked pretty good. Putting the brown sugar in, the brown swerve, was an idea to try to kind of make it a little bit, you know, a little bit more interesting tasting because of the molasses notes that the brown sugar has, and that has not gone into solution very well. So there's little bits of brown swerve that are running around the finished product. How am I going to use this? I'm going to use it just like you'd use peanut butter or almond butter or Nutella. It's just a nice little nut spread, a sweet nut spread that you can use in all kinds of things. So we'll do this again. This is not my final time trying to make pistachio paste. I'm probably going to whip up some cream and put some into some cream and use it to fill something. I'm not sure what, some sort of puff pastry of some kind. You know, I think the lessons I've learned today are that you really need to have a good blender, have a high-powered blender, and that the actual nuts are important. Now, these nuts that I use that came from the local community co-op, you know, I think they might have been roasted because some of them were bright green, but some of them were green on one side and brown on the other once I got the skins off. So I don't know. You know, they didn't say either way, and I didn't really ask anybody. I probably should have. But I think all in all, the taste of the paste that I made is not terrible. I hope that you'll try it. If you got ideas or things how to do to make things mo better next time, please let me know. Comment, you know, down below if you're watching this on YouTube, and let me know. Let me know what I need to do different. I have another interesting nut butter project that I'm working on, but I will go out and buy myself a new food processor before I do that. I've got to do it soon though, because I got 3 pounds of the nuts waiting for me to do something with them. Well, you folks have a good day. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully we're back on the road here before too long. I'm just sorry that I'm in Florida where they're not really paying a lot of attention to COVID right now, and so as a result, Floridians are not especially welcome in other parts of the world right now because nobody wants us to bring our nasty virus with us. Well, y'all have a good day. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear masks when you're out in public. And tell me what you're making.